The Copper Golem is the first mob to rust, and so what happens when you put him underwater, or crush him with an anvil, or put him in a tight space with a lot of chests? A new mob means a new best friend for many, but personally I intend for our newest non-sentient friend to pull his weight, so I'm going to find out exactly what his limits are, and that's what you're about to watch in today's video. So if you want to see the Copper Golem be stress tested, make sure to subscribe or like or whatever else you do, but let's get started with the basics. So the Copper Golem is currently added in a preview version and is the cheapest to craft golem, as instead of requiring lots of blocks and then a carved pumpkin, you use one block and then the carved pumpkin gets turned into the golem, with the chest being made out of the remaining block. Now this means that effectively you're crafting a golem in exchange for just a single carved pumpkin and an ingot, because you can craft a chest from 8 of those, but it gets an even better deal when you think about it like this. You can do the same using a weathered copper block, and there is no such thing as a weathered coppered ingot allowing you to craft the weathered chest, but yet I just did that right there. You can do the same with exposed, which is one downgrade up, or you can do it with all the way oxidized, but it works just the same in any of these cases, which is just a great deal if you ask me. Anyway, this means the Copper Golem doesn't need to have a lot of value, because all he brings to the table is one or maybe even fewer copper ingots and a single carved pumpkin, but actually he kind of does. His small health and height do seem like they'd be big negatives, but what if they're actually not? Well, that's why we've devised these tests. And the first of these is going to take advantage of that height, which is listed as exactly one block, because I can't help but be curious, would he fit in a one block gap? And therefore, could you do some pretty goofy things of crafting? Well, I mean, we can obviously test this by pushing him under, and as you can see, oh, that gets real weird real quickly. But let's do the full testing now. Sorry, I really wasn't expecting the Copper Golem to be that way, but it is a solution to one of the big problems many people have with this mob, because you might think that the Copper Golem just kind of wandering around your base is going to declassify the place. I mean, he's meant to be a helper, which means he should be seen and not heard. And so I have this idea, if he's only a block tool, we could have him alter the chests from the floor. So I've set up this chest right here with 29 bottles of enchanting in, just as a simple item, and then we've got this one wide pathway which we have to crouch through, but ideally the Copper Golem should be able to go through like this. So if we make a chest and we put into that chest some bottle of enchantings, will the Copper Golem be able to get those to me without me ever having to look at him? Because I'm going to be on this side, and no, he's stupid. Oh no. I'm going to be on this side, and there is a path from him to me. He just has to realize that it's there. However, he seemingly does not, which means my backup plan. No, come on. Okay, what if we make this hole a bit wider? Maybe it's the fact that that exists that makes this tricky. Can he find the pathway between himself and there using his height as the guideline? Because even though he is one block tool in terms of his actual body, you can see, we can place a block directly above him, but it doesn't seem that he really likes that, and so he's not going to willingly do this, which means we're going to now try 1.5 blocks. Okay, so we remove all of these blocks and place some slabs there instead, so we've got the same effect in that we're not going to have to look at him. Then we remove all of these blocks and we place some slabs over here. So now we have a 1.5 block area for me to sit in, and indeed, as long as, hey, there we go, he can in fact use it. So here is a useful fact to know: the Copper Golem has a height of 1 block, but even though he has a height of 1 block in terms of his actual model, he doesn't like to go in 1 block wide spaces, preferring to have at least 1.5 blocks instead, which means if you want him to move stuff around, you're going to need to have a pathway for him, but that still means that he can live under your floors. He just needs it to be a little slab pathway like this. It's actually kind of cute, right? Okay, so the next thing I want to test about the Copper Golem is health. Not the number of hearts that he has, that is widely known. It is 6 hearts or 12 health points, which means you can punch him 11 times without him dying. Don't ask how we know that, but what is interesting about the Copper Golem is that he's made from, well, metal, which should result in some interesting behaviors. In my opinion, how it relates to copper, should copper deal more or less damage to him, or no damage at all? Or indeed, how should it relate to anvils? Anvils are one of the most deadly sources of damage for regular players. How does it work with things made from metal? In theory, it should just bounce right off, maybe right. But then the third question is underwater. Humans have to breathe, and so when you go underwater, fun fact, you start drowning, but do Copper Golems? Well, the answer to that last test, at least in my experience, seems to be no. I have left these guys under here for 5 minutes just to make sure they didn't have an abnormally long breath holding time, and as you can see, despite the fact that I'm starting to drown, the Copper Golems haven't lost any health or taken any damage. This means that you can actually run run the copper golems underwater if you want to, but it is worth noting they cannot swim. They find it very hard to go up and down blocks underwater, which means that even if you want to, you know, like have them swim around, they're not going to be able to. Instead, they kind of function like skeletons at the bottom of the water. But yeah, a similar thing that I wanted to test was how does it work when it comes to, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to move you over there. How does it work when it comes to anvils? So I've got this button, which, you know, these guys should be glad they don't function like the old copper golem, because as it turns out, if they were to randomly press buttons, it might result in their own demise. And this guy is running away from it. He's seen something terrible and he doesn't want to be a part of that. So that leaves us with just one last question in regards to their health. If we know they have 12 health points normally, and I have this copper axe, which deals 4 damage, this should kill the copper golem in 3 hits. But does it kill this fresh copper golem in 3 hits, or more, or less, or not at all? The answer is, well, 1, 2, 3. As it turns out, the copper tools do not do any more or any less damage to the copper golem, which I have to say is what I actually expected. A lot of people believe that iron does more or less damage to the iron golem, and it's just not true. It's something that feels correct to a lot of people intuitively, that something with copper in the name would do more or less damage to something else with copper in the name, but it's not true for mining with the copper pickaxe, and it's not true for dealing damage with the copper axe or sword either. But yeah, if you want to, we now know that copper golems take no damage underwater, and so as long as you don't drop any anvils on them, they can live down here forever, which is nice. Okay, the third test that I'd like to do is a simple one regarding reach. You see, a lot of people want to know how far away their copper golems can reach from, and so I've jumped into creative, placed one of these blocks in midair, so I can make myself a copper golem, and then we're going to find out how far away he can put items into chests. We can start at one which is literally a block and a half away, but because the copper golem can't go very far, literally to the edge of his block, we should be able to see his maximum reach quite easily this way. So I'll put some of my stakes in here, and then some of my stakes in here, and then we're going to discover that the copper golem doesn't seem to want to open the chest if he's standing on it. So then we're going to make another chest, which we'll put, like, I guess back here behind him. He should be able to reach into that one, I assume. And then we'll put the stakes in there and see if he's able to do anything. Oh, what? What's wrong? There's stake in here, and there's stake in here. Why aren't you sorting it? Okay, let's try blocks, just in case he's picky. Here's some acacia planks. Here's some acacia planks. This is really surprising behavior. Okay, we're gonna see if this is in fact the problem. Let's put the stakes in there. No, yeah, weirdly enough, if there is a block gap between him and a chest, he's not willing to go into that chest. Is that block gap counted diagonally too? So let's say we have a block over here and there's a chest over here. Is he able to open that chest? Okay, he can walk diagonally over it, and then he can find the correct chest. But he does need to have... Wow, this is actually blowing my mind just how... First of all, look at how he's floating right now. But it's blowing my mind that he has to be able to walk over to a chest to open it. At least seemingly based on this, right? He was willing to go upwards and diagonally, but he's not willing to go straight horizontally. So let's now try the same, but with a chest that is over there. This chest will have 11 copper ingots in. This chest will have the other 11. Is he smart enough to go into this chest? Because it's upwards diagonally, so theoretically it might work for him. No, he's as dumb as a bag of bricks. I'm sorry, I didn't realize he was stupid. Now I feel bad. Okay, test 4 is one that I know I wanted to know the answer to, and maybe you do as well. How easily can you move your copper golems around? Because they have their own targets and their own goals, it's actually quite hard to, you know, just manually nudge them because they're always up to something. So there's 4 ways I want to try moving them. Let's see if they all work. The first of these is minecart. This works on the vast majority of small mobs, and the copper golem feels like it is small enough to fit in. So let's see if he actually is. I'm going to move my minecart all the way over here, and then I'm going to nudge a copper golem into it as simply as I can. As you can see, he's very hard to nudge, which is why you've got to be able to use that health and put him in. But once you do, the copper golem can be moved around your world like a portable lightning rod. He really does have a lightning rod for a head, doesn't he? Anyway, the second thing I wanted to test is obviously the boat. I feel like the boat is the modern minecart when it comes to moving mobs around your world. Can you put a copper golem in a boat? I suspect you should be able to. Yes, you can, but his hand kind of glitches through the side. But still, that's a perfect win for me. What about the more modern than even that method? So I'm going to now attach to the copper golem, but not the boat. Presumably that works. Yes, it does. Can I move the copper golem around by lead? Oh, I can. So this is probably the easiest way to move him around. And funnily enough, they even have a custom leashing position, which is you tie it to his head, which is fun. And so this should mean we can tie them to, say, a fence if we want to keep them in a certain area and make sure they don't wander off too far. This might be quite useful, I would say. But the big one is, can we leash him to a happy ghast? Sometimes you want to fly around your world, and the happy ghast allows you to do precisely that. So let's put the harness on him if we can. Let's now attach ourselves to him. And can I fly around with a copper golem chasing me? No, not yet. Wait, let's fix that. So here's my lead. Just quickly shift click it onto that. There we go. And now, hey, you can in fact have copper golems fly around your world, just in case you want them, but you don't really want them on the ground. This is a great solution to that problem. But yeah, as it turns out, copper golems can fit anywhere that any other small entities can, which means that you don't have to worry about them not fitting in a boat like a horse. RIP. To this day, still don't understand that decision, Bedrock devs. We got lots of parity that we need, but we went for that instead. But thankfully, they did decide to go for this. You know, I'm kind of curious. Can you leash a snow golem? I'm like 90% sure you can't with an iron golem. But you can with a snow golem. That's kind of fun. It's like an easy way to make your own custom path around the world. Anyway, you know, I need to know if you can leash an iron golem now. Oh, you really should not be able to do this in my opinion. Why is he going along with this? Can you leash an angry iron golem? Oh, you can. Okay, so that means... This is really, really silly in my opinion. But that means we can take someone who's angry with me, and I can get him trapped in midair, right? Or I could even like tie him to a fence up here. So /set block fence. This is very off topic of the test. But there we go. I've now got an angry iron golem on a leash, ready to murder me. This is silly. This should not be allowed, but I love that it is. Anyway, yeah, you can also therefore leash as many copper golems as you like, even the full variety if you want to, which is fun. And just in case you haven't seen it yet, you can in fact get rid of the oxidization on them. There's no good reason to right now, but there you go. There's some fun bonus facts before our final test. Okay, so I need to start by saying that I know this has been a silly set of tests, and I love it that way, I wouldn't change anything about it, but I know that a lot of people have the concern of like, okay, I want to use a lot of copper golems, maybe they're perfect for your world, maybe they're perfect for sorting some chests or something, but how many copper golems can I have before things start to break? This is a very real and very valid question, and I wanted to find the answer out, so I've gone to a trial chamber because I spot a perfect opportunity to make lots of copper golems for very cheap. You don't even have to move the copper out of here, you can simply place it on the ground and the whole place will slowly, as you can see here, turn into copper golems. This is fun in my opinion, and so I've come in here with as many carved pumpkins as I can, and I'm going to place as many of these blocks in here, turning the entire structure into a copper golem nightmare. This is kind of fun, and it's arguably a way to get a lot of copper chests even easier than you can right now, and we're going to see how long I have to go before the copper golems start to cause problems for myself and everyone else. Also, I'm going to turn the difficulty to easy right now, and I'll see if the copper golems help me with the... Oh, sorry, I am on easy. Why are no mob spawning? I'm going to turn mob spawning on. Is mob spawning on? It's not. There we go. I'm going to turn mob spawning on, and we're going to see if having this many copper golems is useful with the fight. Because if the silverfish want to get to me, they're going to struggle to do precisely that. Oh no, they're not. The copper golems aren't saving me as much as I thought they would. But anyway, yeah. Trial chamber strategy, using a bunch of copper golems, probably not that good. But as a copper golem strategy, oh, look, you can place it on the side of blocks even. Oh yeah, that's fun. As a strategy, this is entirely valid and entirely functional. And isn't this delightful? Just how many of these guys I can make with no effort whatsoever. This is such a silly situation. But as you can see, my frame rate has only cut in about half since we started doing this, which means that even when we fill basically an entire room with copper golems, we could have got more in there, of course, but even when we get this many copper golems in one place, it's not that disastrous. And so let's find out what number is disastrous. Okay, so here is the test. I have this spawner that is going to make about 4 copper golems a second. It's going to be, I don't know, I guess like an engine in that way, like and that means for every second we leave this running, 4 copper golems should spawn. how long until our frame rates get to disastrous levels? How many copper golems do you need, or how many copper golems can you have before things get disastrous, even on, you know, in this case, a fairly high-end PC, running in just regular fancy graphics in 1600 by 900. You know, we've got the best case scenario for how many copper golems we can have, and let's find out how many we get. I guess the related question is, how many copper golems does it take to solve a hedge maze? Okay, the answer to our very scientific test here is it took 2 minutes and 40 seconds, and therefore about 640 copper golems spawned before my frame rate went consistently below 60. This means that if you're intending on using a lot of copper golems in your builds, unless you have an even more powerful machine, it's not impossible, but unless you have that, you would want to have fewer than 600 copper golems, because keep in mind you'll also have chests and other entities slowing things down substantially, and so fewer than 600 copper golems is what you should have. However, the answer to how many copper golems does it take to solve a hedge maze is above 600, because despite all of them being in there, it's still, as you can see, got them fairly close to the entrance, but they didn't make it out in those 3-ish minutes, and so as a result we can say that you can use copper golems for lots of things. We've proven they're great for working below your floors, even if your floors are below water. We've proven that you can move them around in fairly automated ways with minecarts and boats. However, we've proven that if you want a hedge maze solved, you'd be best off using another mob, because these guys aren't the best when it comes to actually seeking out solutions, and also they do not have a reach range at all, especially when it's over a gap. They have very tricky problems when it comes to finding chests, and I imagine their AI is so bad that it has to be something that is going to be reworked. In their current form though, they are very cute. I am glad they don't press buttons. I'm glad they do a lot more instead, and I can totally see myself having some of these, if only for fun, because they're not very good at the big chest room solutions, but you can create a small kind of junk pile that then the copper golem can sort through, and I like the idea of being able to do that. Just dump all of my stuff in a chest and then have it be sorted into other chests, which I can then actually move myself. Is that the biggest endorsement we can say for this guy so far? Yes, but again, keep in mind it's early in the beta preview cycle. Everything you've seen is technically subject to change, but I imagine the biggest thing that will actually be changing is the uses for the copper golem. We do have quite a while to go in what we're currently calling the copper drop, and so keep in mind that at any week we could be seeing new content. Will that content be copper golem related? Maybe. Will it be copper related more broadly? Well, I'd love to see other copper features. Could it be entirely other things about the underground or the rest of the game? Yes, because we are in the exciting beta preview period where literally anything could happen at any week, and this is one of my favorite periods to be around, so I hope you all enjoyed this test for the copper golem, but I hope that I can show you some other fun things that are coming, perhaps as soon as tomorrow. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed my very silly tests, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.